The space around the Rigel system looked peaceful. Stars shone like tiny diamonds against the black sky. But peace was about to end. Admiral Cathfar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the screens that showed his fleet. 200. Warships moved through space like a pack of metal wolves. Each ship was 3 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 1,000 years. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "we have found something." Cathfar turned his large, blue-scaled head toward the younger officer. His yellow eyes glowed with interest. "What is it?" "A small ship, sir. Our sensors say it is human." The bridge became quiet. Every officer stopped what they were doing. Humans were new to space. They had only left their home planet 50 years ago. Most aliens thought they were weak and primitive. "Show me," Cathfar ordered. The main screen lit up. A small ship appeared, no bigger than a Zephyrian shuttle. It looked simple, almost ugly compared to the sleek alien vessels. The hull was gray metal with burn marks from space travel. It had the letters UES Wanderer painted on its side. "How many crew?" Cathfar asked. 12 humans, sir." "It appears to be a scout ship." Cathfar laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. 12 humans? In that tiny ship? He turned to his tactical officer. "Captain Velther, take your destroyer and capture that vessel. We need to learn what the humans are doing in our territory." Captain Velther saluted. He was young for a Zephyrian, only 200 years old. His scales were bright green, showing his excitement. "Yes, Admiral. This will be easy." On board the UES Wanderer, Commander Jake Morrison was drinking coffee and reading reports. He was a big man with brown hair and kind eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform that looked nothing like the fancy armor of alien soldiers. "Commander," said Lisa Chong, the ship's pilot. She was a small woman with black hair tied back in a ponytail. "We have company, big company." Jake looked at the screen. The alien fleet filled the display like a cloud of angry metal insects. "Well, that's not good," he said calmly. "How many?" "About 200 ships, sir. One of them is coming our way." Jake took another sip of coffee. "Pete, how are our engines?" Pete Collins, the ship's engineer, looked up from his work. He was a tall man with gray hair and dirty hands. "Running smooth, Commander. We can move when you want." "Amy, try to talk to them," Jake said to the communications. "Officer." Amy Rodriguez was young and nervous, but she was good at her job. "This is the UES Wanderer," Amy said into her microphone. "We are on a peaceful mission. Please identify yourselves." The answer came back in a deep alien voice. "Human vessel, you are in Zephyrian space. Stop your engines and prepare to be boarded." Jake smiled. "Well, they're not very friendly." "Lisa, think we can outrun them?" Lisa grinned. "In this little ship? Against a destroyer?" "Commander, that sounds like fun." The Zephyrian destroyer was 10 times bigger than the Wanderer. It looked like a giant spear with weapons all over its hull. Captain Velther sat in his command chair, sure this would be over quickly. "Target their engines," he ordered. "Low power. We want them alive." The destroyer fired. Bright blue beams shot across space toward the little human ship, but the Wanderer wasn't there anymore. It had moved so fast that the alien sensors couldn't track it. Where did it go? Velther demanded. "Above us, sir," shouted a sensor operator. The Wanderer flew over the destroyer like a bird playing with a cat. Lisa's hands moved over the controls like she was playing a piano. The ship danced between the alien weapon beams, never staying in one place for more than a second. "How are they doing that?" Velther asked. "Their ship is too small to move that fast." On the Wanderer, the crew worked like they had done this 100 times before. Jake gave quiet orders. Pete kept the engines running perfectly. Amy recorded everything the aliens said. Dr. Kate Wilson, the ship's doctor, watched the alien ship and took notes. "They're not very good at this," Lisa said as she spun the ship around another plasma beam. "Their weapons are powerful, but slow. Danny, what do you think?" Jake asked the weapons officer. Danny Torres was a quiet man who had learned to fight in Earth's military. "They're used to fighting big ships," Danny said. "Ships that can't move fast. They don't know how to hit something small." The space battle continued for an hour. The destroyer fired hundreds of shots. The Wanderer was hit 0 times. Captain Velther's crew was getting tired and angry. "Sir," said his second officer, "maybe we should call for help." "No," Velther snarled. "I will not ask the Admiral for help with one tiny human ship." But the humans were not trying to win. They were learning. Amy recorded every alien transmission. Pete studied their weapon signatures. Kate watched how their ship moved. They were treating the battle like a science experiment. "Okay, people," Jake finally said. "We have what we came for. Lisa, take us out of here." The Wanderer suddenly shot away from the destroyer. It moved faster than any Zephyrian ship could follow. In seconds, it was gone, leaving only empty space. And a very angry alien Captain Admiral Kethvar was not happy when he heard what happened. "You let them escape?" "Sir, they were faster than our sensors could track. Their pilot was incredible. It was one small ship with 12 humans." "Yes, sir. But they fought like nothing we have ever seen." Kethvar stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. "Find them. Use the whole fleet if you have to. I want to know what these humans are really capable of." He did not know that Jake Morrison was already sending a message to Earth. The message was simple. First contact successful. Aliens are hostile, but not very smart. Recommend peaceful approach with strong backup. The real war was about to begin. The Kepler 442 system was quiet when the Zephyrian fleet arrived. Admiral Kethvar looked at the star charts with his yellow eyes. This was where the human ship had gone. He was sure of it. "Report," he ordered. "4 planets, sir," said the sensor. "Officer, the third one has water and air. The fourth one is mostly rock and metal. We're picking up the human energy signature from the 4th planet." Kethvar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "They've landed. Perfect. Now we have them trapped." The Admiral's flagship was huge, bigger than a human city. Around it, 200 other ships waited for orders. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Against 12 humans in one tiny ship, it seemed like too much. "Deploy the fleet in siege formation," Kethvar commanded. "Send reconnaissance drones to the 4th planet. I want to know exactly where they are." Captain Velther stepped forward. His green scales were darker now, showing his shame from the previous battle. "Sir, request permission to lead the ground assault." "Granted. But this time, Captain, do not underestimate them." "Never again, sir." On the 4th planet, the UES Wanderer sat in a deep canyon. The ship looked dead. No lights. No power signatures, nothing. It was like the crew had simply abandoned it and walked away. But inside the canyon, 12 humans were very busy. "How much time do we have?" Commander Jake Morrison asked. Pete Collins wiped sweat from his face. "Their drones will be here in 20 minutes. The charges will be ready in 15. "Good. Amy, what are you hearing?" Amy Rodriguez had her headphones on, listening to alien radio signals. "They're excited, sir. They think we're trapped. One of their captains wants to capture us personally." Jake nodded. "Danny, are the backup systems ready?" Danny Torres looked up from his work. "Yes, sir. When this goes off, they'll think we're dead." but we'll be safe in the shelter. Dr. Kate Wilson was taking samples of the planet's rocks. This place is perfect for what we need. The minerals here are very explosive when mixed right. Lisa Chong was setting up equipment on the canyon walls. I've never done anything like this before. This is crazy. Good crazy or bad crazy? Jake asked. The best kind of crazy, sir. The Zephyrian drones arrived exactly on time. They were sleek metal insects with sensors and cameras. They flew down into the canyon and found the human ship sitting there like a dead whale. Perfect, Captain Velther said as he watched the drone footage. The ship is powered down. They're probably inside, trying to fix their engines. Admiral Kethvar watched from his flagship. Send 3 squadrons. Surround the canyon. I want them taken alive. Yes, sir. 60 Zephyrian fighters flew down from space. They were beautiful ships, silver and blue, like flying daggers. Each one was armed with plasma cannons and energy shields. The pilots were trained warriors who had never lost a battle. They landed around the canyon in perfect formation. The squadron leaders reported to Captain Velther. Canyon secured, sir. No sign of the humans outside their ship. Excellent. Move in carefully. Remember, we want them alive. The Zephyrian soldiers were tall and strong. They wore armor that could stop bullets and energy weapons. They moved toward the human ship like hunting cats, ready for anything. Except, what actually happened? Now, Jake said quietly into his radio. Pete Collins pressed a button. The canyon exploded. It was not just one explosion. It was a chain reaction that turned the entire valley into a volcano. The rocks that Dr. Kate Wilson had studied contained minerals that burned like rocket fuel when mixed with the right chemicals. Pete had used parts from their ship's engines to create the mixture. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from space. The ground shook like an earthquake. A pillar of fire shot up into the sky, carrying with it the remains of 60 Zephyrian fighters and their crews. On the flagship, Admiral Kethvar stared at the screen in shock. What happened? Sir, the canyon exploded. All 3 squadrons are gone. How? The humans only had a small ship. Unknown, sir. The explosion was enormous. But the real shock came when the smoke cleared. The human ship was gone. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Just gone. Like it had never been there at all. Find them, Kethvar roared. Search the entire planet. While the aliens searched, 12 humans sat in a hidden shelter 3 miles away. They had dug it by hand using tools from their ship. It was not fancy, but it was safe. Nice work, Pete, Jake said. I didn't know you could make bombs. Mining asteroids teaches you a lot about explosives, Pete replied. Though I've never made one that big before. Amy was still working at her radio. Sir, you need to hear this. They're really upset. And scared. Scared? Kate asked. Why would they be scared? Because, Amy said with a smile, they just lost 60 trained pilots to 12 humans with spare parts and rocks. Danny was watching the alien ships through a small periscope. They're bombarding the canyon now, destroying everything left. Let them, Jake said. Amy, did you get what we came for? Yes, sir. I recorded everything. Their radio codes, their tactics, their ship designs. Everything. Lisa was cleaning dirt from her hands. So what now? We can't stay here forever. Jake looked at his crew. They were dirty and tired, but they were smiling. Now we go home and show Earth what we learned. And we hope they send better people to talk to these aliens. Better people? Pete asked. Diplomats. People who are good at making peace. Kate laughed. You mean people who won't blow up canyons on the first day? Exactly. Amy suddenly looked serious. Sir, I'm getting a transmission. It's from the alien admiral. He's ordering a full planetary bombardment. Jake sighed. Well, we've definitely made them angry. Time to go. The humans packed their equipment and prepared to leave. Above them, the Zephyrian fleet was getting ready to turn the entire planet into dust. But as they prepared to escape, Jake sent one last message to the alien fleet. Amy helped him encode it in their own language. To Admiral Kethvor and the Zephyrian Empire, the message said, "Thank you for the demonstration. Our friends will find this information very useful. We hope to meet again under better circumstances." The message was signed, the crew of the UES Wanderer, Earth's first deep space exploration team. Admiral Kethver read the message and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Pure, cold fear. "First deep space exploration team?" he said slowly. "You mean there are more of them?" His communications officer nodded. "Sir, if this was just an exploration team, what does their military look like?" Kethver stared at the planet below. Somewhere, down there, 12 humans had just made his entire fleet look like fools. And now they were telling him this was just the beginning. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we need to know everything about these humans." Everything. But it was too late. The humans were already gone, taking their knowledge with them. And somewhere in space, Earth was getting ready to respond to what had happened to their people. The war was about to begin in earnest. 3 days had passed since the canyon explosion. Admiral Kethver had not slept well. His fleet was spread across the Kepler system, searching for any sign of the humans. They had found nothing. "Sir," his communications officer called out. "Long range sensors are detecting ships approaching the system." Kethver's yellow eyes focused on the main screen. "How many?" 30 vessels, sir. They're human." The Admiral felt his heart rate increase. 30 ships was not many compared to his 200. But after what 12 humans had done to his fleet, he was not taking any chances. Battle stations, full combat formation, all weapons ready. The bridge crew moved quickly. Lights changed from blue to red. The sound of charging weapons filled the air. Throughout the fleet, 200 warships prepared for battle. "Sir," the sensor officer said, "the human ships are smaller than ours. Much smaller." "Size does not matter," Kethver replied, remembering the tiny scout ship. "What are their weapons?" "Unknown, sir. They're using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors can barely track them." The human fleet entered the system like ghosts. Their ships were dark gray, almost invisible against the black of space. They moved in patterns that made no sense to Zephyrian military doctrine. On the lead human ship, Captain Roy Bennett studied the alien formation. He was an older man with white hair and calm eyes. He had been a commercial pilot before volunteering for this mission. "Danny, what do you think?" He asked his weapons officer. Danny Torres had been promoted after the Wanderer incident. "They're lined up like targets, sir. Same formation they used 3 days ago." "Good. They haven't learned anything. Lisa, are you ready?" Lisa Chong was now commanding her own ship. "Ready, sir?" "The asteroid field is in position. Pete, how are our special packages?" Pete Collins grinned. "Locked and loaded, Captain. Though I still can't believe we're doing this with mining equipment." The human fleet split into 3 groups. To the Zephyrians, it looked like a standard attack pattern. But Roy Bennett had learned from Jake Morrison's report. The humans were not going to fight like aliens expected. "Amy, send them a message," Roy ordered. Amy Rodriguez opened a channel to the alien fleet. "Attention Zephyrian vessels. You attacked peaceful explorers. Surrender now, and we will not harm you." Admiral Kethver laughed when he heard the message. 30 ships demanding that 200 surrender? These humans are insane. "Sir, they're moving," the tactical officer reported. The human ships began to accelerate. But instead of charging straight at the alien fleet, they spread out in all directions. Some headed for the asteroid belt. Others flew toward the system's star. A few disappeared behind the planet's moons. What are they doing? Kethver demanded. Unknown, sir. This is not a standard attack pattern. Then we will destroy them one by one. All ships, open fire. The Zephyrian fleet unleashed a storm of plasma beams and energy missiles. The space around them lit up like a fireworks display. But the human ships were not where the weapons hit. They had moved again, always staying just ahead of the alien targeting systems. They're fast, Captain Velther reported from his new ship. Faster than they should be. Then we will hit them with area weapons. Kethver decided. Fire everything. The alien fleet fired every weapon they had. Energy beams crossed space in every direction. Missiles exploded in huge fireballs. For a moment, it looked like the entire system was on fire. But when the light faded, the human ships were still there, and they were no longer running. Now, Captain Roy Bennett said quietly, the asteroid belt suddenly came alive. Rocks that had been floating peacefully for millions of years began to move. They accelerated toward the Zephyrian fleet, like guided missiles. What is happening? Kethver shouted. The asteroids, sir. They're being controlled somehow. Pete Collins had spent 3 days setting up mining charges throughout the asteroid belt. Now he was using them to turn space rocks into weapons. Each asteroid was guided by a small human device that steered it toward an alien ship. The first rocks hit the Zephyrian formation like hammer blows. Ships that could withstand plasma cannons were crushed by chunks of stone moving at incredible speed. Shields up, Kethver ordered. All ships evasive maneuvers. But the humans were not finished. From behind the moons, more ships appeared. They were not attacking with energy weapons. They were using something much simpler and more terrifying. Ramming speed, Lisa Chong said to her crew. Just like we practiced, the human ships charged straight at the alien vessels. Their hulls were covered with explosive charges that Pete had designed. When they hit, the explosions tore through alien armor like paper. They're using suicide attacks, Captain Velther reported. Their ships are ramming ours. That's impossible, Kethver said. No crew would sacrifice themselves like that. But the humans were not sacrificing themselves. At the last second before impact, each crew teleported to safety using emergency transport systems. The ships hit their targets without anyone inside them. Dr. Kate Wilson was monitoring the battle from a command ship. Alien casualties are mounting, sir. They're losing ships faster than they can respond. Good, Roy Bennett replied. Danny, are you ready with the next phase? Yes, sir. Targeting their command ship now. The human fleet had been studying the alien formation carefully. They had identified which ship was giving orders. Now they focused all their attention on Admiral Kethvar's flagship. Sir, they're concentrating their fire on us, the tactical officer reported. Transfer command to the secondary vessel, Kethvar ordered. All ships protect the flagship. But the humans were not trying to destroy the flagship. They were trying to capture it. Amy Rodriguez had been listening to alien communications for 3 days. She knew exactly which frequencies they used. Jamming their communications now, she reported. They can't coordinate their defense. Without communications, the Zephyrian fleet began to fall apart. Ships collided with each other, trying to protect their admiral. Orders were confused or never received. The perfect military formation became chaos. Sir, Pete Collins reported, I'm detecting power fluctuations in their engines. I think I can overload them. Do it, Roy ordered. Pete had been studying alien technology since the first encounter. He understood their power systems better than they did. With a few carefully placed signals, he caused a chain reaction that shut down half the enemy fleet. Engines are offline, the alien engineering officer reported. We're dead in space. Admiral Kethvor stared at the tactical display. In less than an hour, his massive fleet had been reduced to scattered wreckage. The humans had used rocks, mining equipment, and suicide ships to destroy the pride of the Zephyrian Empire. How? He whispered. How did they do this? Captain Velther. Voice came over the emergency channel. Sir, they're not fighting like soldiers. They're fighting like engineers. Like they're solving a puzzle. A puzzle? They studied our weapons, our tactics, our weaknesses. Then they built solutions. Each attack was designed to counter our specific capabilities. Roy Bennett opened a channel to the surviving alien ships. Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Roy Bennett of the Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is defeated. Surrender now, and we will treat your crews with respect. Kethvar looked around his damaged bridge. Half his crew was injured. Most of his fleet was destroyed or disabled. And the humans were offering mercy. We surrender, he said quietly. Thank you, Admiral. Prepare to be boarded. As human ships approached the alien vessels, Kethvar asked the question that would haunt him forever. Captain Bennett, what kind of soldiers are you? Roy's answer came back immediately. We're not soldiers, Admiral. We're miners, pilots, engineers. And teachers. We're just people who don't like bullies. The truth hit Kethvar like a physical blow. These humans who had destroyed his fleet were not even warriors. They were ordinary people who had learned to fight because they had to. If you're not soldiers, he asked, what are your actual military forces like? Roy Bennett's laughter came through the radio. Admiral, you really don't want to find out. The emergency message arrived while Admiral Kethvar was still counting his losses. His communications officer, one of the few who had not been injured in the battle, looked up from his console with wide eyes. Sir, urgent transmission from high. Command. Kethvar straightened in his damaged command chair. Around him, his bridge crew worked to repair the systems that the humans had so easily destroyed. Put it through. The voice of Supreme Admiral Zithkar filled the bridge. It was cold and filled with something Kethvar had never heard before. Fear. Admiral Kethvar, you will cease all operations immediately. Withdraw from human space at once. Do not engage their forces under any circumstances. Sir, I don't understand. We can still fight. My fleet. Your fleet is defeated, Admiral. We have been monitoring your battle. More importantly, we have been learning about your enemy. Kethvar felt confusion wash over him. Sir, they are just humans. Primitive, weak. That is where you are wrong, Admiral. Prepare to receive intelligence data. What you are about to learn will change everything. The main screen flickered and then displayed files that made Kethvar's blood run cold. Photos of humans, their backgrounds, their jobs. But these were not the files of soldiers or warriors. Commander Jake Morrison, the Supreme Admiral's voice continued, geology professor at Stanford University, volunteered for deep space exploration to study mineral formations on distant worlds. Kethvar stared at the image. This was the human who had made his entire fleet look like fools. A teacher who studied rocks. Lisa Chong, test pilot for civilian aircraft, joined the mission because she wanted adventure and loved flying. The pilot who had danced around his destroyer like it was standing still. She flew passenger planes for fun. Pete Collins, mining engineer, specializes in asteroid mining and controlled explosions for ore extraction. The man who had turned an entire canyon into a bomb using spare parts. He dug holes for a living. Amy Rodriguez, communications specialist. Her normal job is helping aliens learn to speak with humans for the first time. The woman who had cracked their military codes in one day. She was a translator. Dr. Kate Wilson, medical doctor, and biologist. She studies alien life forms to make sure humans don't get sick from them. The person who had analyzed their weaknesses so quickly. She was a doctor who helped people. Danny Torres, former military, now works as a security guard at a shopping mall. The weapons expert who had destroyed 60 fighters. He watched stores to make sure no one stole anything. Cuthbert felt his world crumbling. Sir, you're telling me that my fleet was defeated by a teacher, a pilot, a miner, a translator, a doctor, and a security guard. That's not the worst part, Admiral. The strike force that followed them consists of what humans call civilian contractors and reservists. They are not full-time soldiers. What do you mean? Captain Roy Bennett was a cargo pilot who flew supplies between planets. Pete Collins, who destroyed half your fleet with modified mining equipment, still works at an asteroid mining company. Lisa Chong teaches flying lessons to children on weekends. The truth was worse than Cuthbert could have imagined. The humans who had crushed his military force were people with normal jobs who had volunteered to help their government in their spare time. But, sir, how is this possible? They fought like trained warriors. No, Admiral, they fought like humans. We have been studying their species since your first encounter. What we have learned is terrifying. New files appeared on the screen. These showed human history, their wars, their development. Humans do not have a warrior caste like we do. They do not breed soldiers or train children for war. Instead, every human is taught to solve problems and adapt to new situations. Cuthbert watched footage of human conflicts. He saw farmers who became snipers, teachers who became tacticians, shop owners who became demolition experts. When humans are threatened, they do not rely on professional soldiers. They rely on each other. A mechanic becomes a weapons expert. A doctor becomes a strategist. A pilot becomes a commando. But their technology is primitive compared to ours. Their technology is different, Admiral. They do not build weapons to be beautiful or to show power. They build them to work. And when they don't have the right tool, they make one. The screen showed human workshops where ordinary people created weapons from household items. Cars turned into tanks. Kitchen chemicals became explosives. Children's toys became communication devices. They treat warfare like any other problem to be solved. They study their enemy, identify weaknesses, and then build solutions using whatever materials they have available. Captain Velther's voice came over the intercom. Sir, we're receiving more intelligence from the human ships. They want to talk. Put them through. Cuthbert ordered. Commander Jake Morrison appeared on the screen. He was sitting in a comfortable chair, drinking coffee. He looked relaxed, like he was at home. Admiral Cuthbert, I wanted to apologize for the misunderstanding. We never intended to fight you. Misunderstanding? Cuthbert's voice was filled with disbelief. You destroyed my fleet. Actually, sir, we disabled your fleet. Very few of your people were killed. We made sure of that. Jake took a sip of his coffee. You see, Admiral, we're not warriors. We're explorers. We came to your space to make friends and learn about your people. Then why did you attack us? We didn't attack you, sir. You attacked us. We just defended ourselves. The simple truth of it hit Cuthbert like a hammer. The humans had never been the aggressors. They had responded to Zephyrian aggression with the minimum force necessary to survive. But you could have killed us all, Cuthbert said. Yes, sir, we could have. But that would have been wrong. We don't kill people unless we have no choice. Amy Rodriguez appeared beside Jake. Admiral, we've been listening to your communications. We know your government is scared of us. But they don't need to be. How can you say that? You've proven how dangerous you are. We've proven how dangerous we can be when attacked, Jake corrected. But we prefer to be helpful. We'd rather teach you about our technology than use it against you. Dr. Kate Wilson joined them on the screen. Admiral, we've studied your biology. We know how to cure 3 diseases that your people suffer from. We'd be happy to share that information. In exchange for what? Nothing, Kate replied. We share knowledge because it helps everyone. Kethver stared at the humans. They had just destroyed his fleet, and now they were offering to cure his people's diseases for free. I don't understand your species, he said finally. That's okay, Jake replied with a smile. We don't really understand ourselves sometimes, but we're willing to try if you are. The Supreme Admiral's voice came back on the private channel. Admiral, are you beginning to understand what we're dealing with? I think so, sir. They're not just warriors. They're not just scientists. They're both. They're whatever they need to be. Exactly. And Admiral, there's one more thing you need to know. What's that, sir? Earth's actual military has not been notified of this conflict yet. Everything you faced has been handled by what they call civilian response teams. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Kethvar realized that he had been fighting humans who are not even soldiers. Real human soldiers, trained from Earth to fight, were still on their home planet. Sir, he said quietly, what are their actual military forces like? We don't know, Admiral, and pray to our ancestors that we never find out. On the screen, Jake Morrison finished his coffee and smiled. Admiral, would you like to meet our diplomatic team? They're much better at talking than we are. Kethver looked at his ruined fleet, then at the humans who had destroyed it with spare parts and creativity. Yes, he said. I think that would be a very good idea. Admiral Kethvar sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the report he had to write. Around him, his crew worked quietly to repair their ship. The sounds of welding and computer diagnostics filled the bridge, but he barely heard them. Report would be called the human incident in official files. But Kethver knew it would be remembered as something else, the day the Zephyrian Empire learned that they were not the strongest species in the galaxy. Sir, his communications officer said, the human diplomatic ship is approaching. Kethver looked up. A diplomatic ship? Yes, sir. It's about the same size as their scout vessel. The humans say they want to talk about peace. The Admiral laughed, but there was no humor in it. After what we've seen, I'm not sure I want to meet there. Diplomats. The human ship docked with his flagship an hour later. Kethvar waited in the main conference room, wondering what kind of people would represent a species that fought like demons and offered mercy like angels. The humans who entered were not what he expected. They were older, quieter, and dressed in simple clothes. The leader was a woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Admiral Kethver, she said, extending her hand in the human greeting. I'm Ambassador Sarah Miller. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Kethver shook her hand carefully. Ambassador, I must admit, I'm not sure what to expect from your people anymore. Sarah smiled. I understand. You've had a difficult few days, but I want you to know that what happened here was not what we wanted. Then what did you want? To explore, to learn, to make friends. She sat down across from him. Admiral, my job is to prevent wars, not win them. But your people are so good at fighting. When we have to be, yes. But we're much better at other things. We build cities that touch the clouds. We cure diseases that have killed millions. We turn dead planets into gardens. Sarah opened a small device and showed him pictures of Earth. Cities filled with light and life. Forests growing in space stations. Oceans cleaned and restored. This is what we do when we're not being attacked, she said. We create, we heal, we explore. Kethver studied the images. These cities are beautiful, but I've seen what your people can do when angered. Yes, you have. And I'm sorry about that. But Admiral, you need to understand something important. The people who defeated your fleet were not angry. They were scared. Scared? They seemed very confident. They were terrified, Sarah replied. Commander Morrison told me that when your ships appeared, his first thought was that he might never see his daughter again. She's 6 years old and loves to paint pictures of spaceships. Cathver felt something strange in his chest. The human commander who had outsmarted his entire fleet was a father worried about his child. Captain Bennett was thinking about his wife. She grows flowers on their farm and was worried he wouldn't come home to help with the harvest. The woman who had helped destroy his ships was married to a farmer. Dr. Wilson was worried about her patients back on Earth. She had promised to return with samples that might cure a disease affecting human children. The doctor who had analyzed his fleet's weaknesses was trying to save sick children. Admiral, do you understand what I'm telling you? Cathver nodded slowly. They weren't fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting to go home. Exactly. And that, Admiral, is why they were so dangerous. Humans fight differently when they're protecting something they love. Sarah closed the device and looked directly at him. But we don't want to fight you. At all. We want to be your friends. After what happened here? Especially after what happened here. Admiral, your people are brave. They're intelligent. They build beautiful ships and have a rich culture. We could learn so much from each other. Cathver was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, "What do you want from us?" "Nothing. We want to give you things. Knowledge, medicine, art, stories. We want to share the wonders of the universe with you. And in return, we want you to share with us. Teach us about your history. Show us your science. Let us learn from your mistakes and your successes." Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a small plant in a pot. "This is a gift from Earth. It's called a rose. It doesn't do anything useful. It just makes beauty and smells nice." Cathver took the plant carefully. The flower was red and perfect, with a scent unlike anything he had ever experienced. "It's beautiful," he said. "That's all it needs to be." Admiral, humans believe that beauty has value by itself. Art, music, poetry, these things make life worth living. Even for warriors? We don't have warriors, Admiral. We have people who fight when they must, but they all have other lives. Jake Morrison teaches geology to students who dream of exploring new worlds. Lisa Chong gives flying lessons to children who want to touch the stars. Pete Collins designs machines that turn asteroids into homes for families. Cathver held the rose and thought about everything he had learned. "Ambassador, I need to ask you something." "Of course. Your people who defeated my fleet, they said they weren't even soldiers. What are your actual military forces like?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled sadly. "Admiral, I hope you never have to find out. But I will tell you this. If Earth's real military ever has to fight, it will be because someone has done something truly terrible to innocent people." "How? Terrible?" "The kind of terrible that makes teachers become generals and farmers become weapons designers. The kind of terrible that turns our entire species into something you really don't want to face." Cathver felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying that what I faced was your people holding back?" "I'm saying that what you faced was our people trying not to hurt anyone while protecting themselves. If they had been trying to hurt you, Admiral, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The room was silent for a long time. Finally, Cathver spoke. "What do I tell my government? Tell them the truth. That you met a species that could destroy you, but would rather be your friend. That humans are dangerous when threatened, but generous when welcomed. That we have technology that could change your world, and we're willing to share it freely. And if they don't believe me, then tell them what Commander Morrison told me to say." "What's that?" Sarah smiled, but her eyes were serious. "Tell them that Earth has 12 billion people just like the ones you met. And most of them are smarter, more creative, and more determined than the crew of the Wanderer. Cuthbert felt his hands shake slightly. 12 billion humans, like the ones who had destroyed his fleet with spare parts and rocks. Ambassador, that's terrifying. It doesn't have to be, Admiral. Those 12 billion people would rather spend their time building hospitals, growing food, exploring space, and creating art. But if someone threatens their families, their friends, or their way of life, she let the sentence hang in the air. They become what we saw here, Cuthbert finished. Exactly. Admiral Cuthbert left the meeting with the rose in his hands and a report to write that would change galactic history. As he walked back to his bridge, he thought about the message he would send to the Zephyrian High Command. He would tell them about the humans who fought like engineers and thought like artists, about a species that could turn anything into a weapon but preferred to turn weapons into tools, about people who could destroy an entire fleet but would rather cure diseases and grow flowers. But most importantly, he would tell them about the question that would haunt every military commander in the galaxy from that day forward. As he sat down to write his report, Cuthbert's communications officer approached him. Sir, we're receiving a final transmission from the humans. Put it through. Commander Jake Morrison appeared on the screen one last time. He was back in his simple clothes, holding a cup of coffee and smiling. Admiral, before we leave, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For helping us prove that two species can meet in space without destroying each other. Your willingness to talk instead of fight gives me hope for the future. Commander, I have to ask you one last question. Of course, Admiral. That was really just a scout unit? Jake's smile grew wider. Admiral, on Earth, every ship that leaves our planet is a scout unit. Every person who travels to the stars is an explorer first. We're all just trying to understand the universe and our place in it. And if we had killed you, then Earth would have sent teachers to understand why, engineers to solve the problem, and doctors to heal the wounded on both sides. And soldiers? Jake's smile faded. Admiral, I hope that question never needs an audit. Answer. As the human ships disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Cuthbert began writing the most important report of his career. At the top of the page, he wrote, "To the High Command of the Zephyrian Empire, we have encountered a species unlike any other in known space. They call themselves humans. They are dangerous, creative, adaptable, and absolutely terrifying when threatened. They are also kind, generous, curious, and willing to share everything they have with friends." He paused, looking at the rose on his desk, and continued, "I recommend immediate diplomatic contact. And I pray to our ancestors that they remain willing to talk. Because if we ever have to face the real military, may the gods help us all." The final line of his report would become famous throughout the galaxy. They say that was only a human. Scout unit, I believe them. And that is the most frightening thing I have ever written.